So EJ in Georgia wanted to ask, what's our take on the councils of Ephesus and Nicaea and how they shaped the Bible? Is that the question?
That is the question, and I just want to listen to your response.
That's a big question. So I don't think it shaped the Bible. I don't think either of them shaped the Bible. We had Athanasius basically put out with his Easter encyclical which books were going to be part of the canonical Bible. So it didn't change the formulation of the canon. But like Nicaea is where they ultimately wound up talking about the Trinity and other things, doctrinal things, where the Arians were talking about the nature of God the Father and God the Son, etc. Ephesus, I mean, this was about establishing church doctrine. And I will say that while a lot of what they discussed, still hangs out, the truth is that, while Nicaea was 325, and I think Ephesus was 400 and something.
Yeah, a little bit later. Yeah.
I don't remember the exact date. I remember the 325 because I actually wrote a song specifically about the Council of Nicaea, or I rewrote a pop song with lyrics specifically about the Council of Nicaea, and so 325 AD or CE was in there. But well, it was a weird thing for a lecture that I gave.
All right.
But I don't know that it makes a lot of difference, because the truth is, with all the different Christian denominations, they have all changed since 325. They've all changed since for whatever teen thing it was. And what modern Christians tend to think is very different than it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago. So while I find it interesting from an historical perspective, and I think the Trinity was invented at Nicaea in 325, I don't think that there's good reason to think that it existed in any sense in much more than a loose concept prior to that. I don't know that much else significantly impacted, certainly not the Bible, because the canon existed, but I don't think there was much left doctrine-wise.
Okay. I have just one other question. Do you believe that the philosophers of years ago are basically Hollywood wordsmiths of their time?
Are basically what?
They're like Hollywood wordsmiths of their time, philosophers.
I think it depends on the philosopher you're talking about and what their aims and goals were. I know. I mean, Matt's way more educated on this than I am.
I don't know what Hollywood wordsmiths means.
I think he's asking if they're basically just I think that the term a lot of people would use would be like mental masturbation. If they're just armchair hypothesizing about stuff.
No. I think so. Philosophy was incredibly important. It's the foundation of epistemology. You don't get to the sciences without it. You don't get to any modern understanding of anything without the foundation of the sciences. But so if you mean Hollywood wordsmiths in the sense that it's just pablum and sophistry, then no, I absolutely don't think that. But if you mean that it's kind of like these were the big ideas presented to people in a somewhat approachable way, I'm not sure that's true either, because philosophy is something that a lot of people just don't get and ignore.
Right.
But I'm a little biased because I like a little philosophy.
Yeah. Well, and I think the parts of philosophy that I've read most and know about would be ancient Greek stuff. Modern philosophy, I'm still doing a lot of work there, but yeah, I think that there are distinctions between folks like sophists and someone like Aristotle who's trying to figure out how to logic, right? So I mean, there's right. a difference between someone who would refer to themselves as a philosopher who is just sort of trying to figure out how to essentially play games with words, and someone who is trying to sharpen the mind and gain a greater understanding of the world. If that's even answering your question.
In a way, yes. Again, I'm still stuck on them being wordsmiths, because what you just said kind of puts me in that direction.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to pick on theologists right now because I tend to think of theology as like a pseudoscience. I don't really recognize it as like legitimate philosophy. And I know that's going to frustrate and upset some people, but I think that sort of thinking deeply on a question like how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, you know, is kind of a waste of time. But I would point to other branches of philosophy, other philosophers, and say that I find them extremely useful. And I think that humanity's better off because of the work that they've done. So
Yeah, I would say not everything that gets labeled philosophy is particularly useful, but there are a few things that we find useful that don't have a foundation in some aspect of philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah. With that, we are running out of time, EJ. So I hope that this was helpful.
It was. Thank you very much. You guys take care.
Have a good one.